Hi, I'm going to talk to you today about nuclear weapons. Fun subject. Nuclear weapons were, of course, developed in the late 1940s, um, dropped initially on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and since then we've been living with the potential of being destroyed by these things. And while there has been some movement or some degree of trying to mitigate the worst of the threat, we still live with two countries, being Russia and the United States, that have amassed some of these weapons and have no intention of reducing them. So, why is that the case? Why are they not reducing their nuclear weapons? The United Nations was created in the first instance to be able to promote peace and human rights, and to no small extent to address the threat of nuclear weapons and reduce the chance of it being of us ending up with a nuclear war. There have been arms reductions treaties. Um, the Non-Proliferation Treaty meant that countries have not developed nuclear weapons primarily. Any country attempting to do so becomes a pariah. For example, North Korea. However, the existing nuclear armed countries basically get a moral free pass apparently at the UN. So why is that the case? Why do they get a free pass? Well, it's primarily because going back to the 1940s, the late 1940s, in the creation of the UN, basically those countries were entrenched. So they became special countries that were on the UN Security Council, and the Security Council basically gets a free pass in terms of um, they have absolute control. They can veto any resolution. So basically, as we see today, the United States is vetoing any action against Israel, and Russia can't be held to account in Ukraine. So if it's the case that the large countries are misbehaving themselves, or violating UN statutes or UN principles, there's no way to really hold them to account because of this veto capability. Over the last week, there have been many presentations and speeches given at the UN, basically criticizing the Security Council and the ability for them to veto actions, which has led to, among other things, the crisis in Gaza, with no ability for the UN to be able to intercede, even though it is clearly a genocide. My concern is not so much with this subject, although it does relate to the veto in the UN, which has enabled it. Um, the threat of the veto is much more extensive than just the genocide in one country. It is potentially a threat to the entire world, because it enables the nuclear armed countries, primarily Russia and the United States, to be able to continue to maintain huge stockpiles without any kind of commitment to reducing those stockpiles, as per their commitments to the Non-Proliferation Treaty.